The wind howled across the frozen fjord, bearing with it the memory of voices that once filled the halls of Skjalvand. Kjarva pressed her palms against the planked wall of her family's longhouse, feeling the bite of cold through wood that had grown brittle with sorrow. The sun had not risen for 3 days. Winter's grip had come early and fierce. By the light of a single dying fire, she watched the embers twist into specters, remembering each loss. Skjalvand had once teemed with life. Warriors sang at night. Sea children leapt from icy stones into bracing waters, and every day the folk paid tribute to the great stone circle on the ridge. Legars, her father, sang the sagas of their ancestors, those who'd first broken the sea's gray teeth and carved homes out of tundra. Her mother, Thyra, tended the sick with herbs and songs that could soothe the dreams of frost-bitten raiders. Now there was silence. Death had taken her mother in early autumn, a wasting sickness that no runes or prayers could stave off. Kjarva's brother island, brash and full of laughter, had vanished in pursuit of a white moose some swore was the herald of the gods' will. He had not returned, his absence gnawed at the winter nights. Her father, who had never feared battle, grew weathered and thin, his voice fading whenever Kjarva asked for more stories. Loss accumulated like snow drifts, inevitable, silent, sometimes beautiful when the wind caught it just so. But inside, pain rang out sharper than any horn, and each breath felt stolen from someone who deserved it more. On the 4th night of dark, Kjarva wandered to the edge of the haunted grove where the ancestors were said to walk at dusk. She carried with her a stone lamp, its flame coaxed from the last fad of the autumn seals, and a length of red cloth her mother had woven before her voice failed. She sat beneath the tangled branches and tried to sing, but her voice faltered. The gods had long been silent. She remembered a myth told by a wandering seer, a tale of the goddess Hilja whose tears could warm the coldest bones, if only one was brave enough to journey into the heart of night and ask for her blessing. Why must hope require such cost? Kjarva whispered, feeling the pull of the old stories. Why does every gift come clothed in sorrow? From the depths of the grove came a flicker of silver. A fox, its fur bright as frost, its eyes golden and strange. Kjarva had never seen such a beast. She followed it deeper into the wood, heart pounding, the chill growing with every step. The fox led her to a sunken pool where the waters steamed in the bitter air, opaque and swirling with colored shadows. Kjarva crouched, her breath misting, and saw within the pool visions. Her mother tending the sick, islands laughter dancing across the fields, her father raising song. Then the images darkened. Bodies on the snow, the longhouse shutters clattering in wind, a ring of stones with runes pulsing dimly. A voice rose from the water, not the fox's, but something woven from all the stories Skjalvand had forgotten. To restore what is lost, you must name each sorrow. It intoned, ancient and echoing from beneath the black ice. Name it, bear it, and let no winter claim your heart before you finish the naming. Kjarva shivered. She thought first of her mother. Thyra, she said, her voice breaking as she remembered the songs. I named the day you passed, and every moment since that I feared to sing. One by one, she named her griefs, Island's absence, the quiet dinners with her father, the broken gate, the lost hounds, the harvest that failed. Each word sent ripples through the pool. The fox walked its edge, pausing after every sorrow as if measuring their weight. When she finished, her arms grew light, though the pain remained, a pale, persistent bruise. The water stilled. You are brave, the voice murmured. But you must not go home yet. Loss transforms, if carried to its end. Listen for Hilja's footfall in the north wind, and she will show you the next way forward. The fox turned, its eyes playful and sad. Kjarva gathered herself and walked back toward the lights of Skjalvand, carrying both the ache and the promise that, somewhere in the myth, every wound must find its song. Inside the longhouse, her father slept in his chair, an empty mug at his feet. She tucked the red cloth about him, then sat at the hearth, letting the flames warm her grief. As she drifted toward sleep, she repeated the names she had spoken. Each repetition shaped her dreams. Mountains wreathed in mist, a circle of fires, faces that appeared and vanished. When morning broke, a gray gleam through battered shutters. Kjarva woke with a hunger she hadn't felt in months. She stepped outside, determined to begin the quest for Hilja's blessing, to find wherever the deep night faded and hope could kindle new flame. She gathered what little remained: her father's knife, 3 sealskin wraps, a pouch of dried berries, the stone lamp, and her mother's woven cloak. In the shadow of the stone circle, she waited for signs: the fox, the goddess, anything to guide her through the winter's teeth. As she waited, the clan's outcast appeared: Bruni, a smith whose temper had turned half the village against him, and Yrsa, a woman feared for her riddles and wild knowledge. Each carried loss of their own, and each, seeing Kjarva beneath the stones, knelt beside her in silence. The fox appeared once more, circling them all before vanishing into the wind. The message was clear: they must go together into the mythic depths where sorrow and blessing are twins. They pledged themselves to the journey, joining hands in the old way, offering names of what they grieved, asking the world for a purpose beyond mere survival. As the 3 walked beyond the ridge, the sky crackled with distant lightning, and the stones whispered promises barely heard but deeply felt. For the first time since her mother's death, Kjarva felt the pulse of possibility, a story rising from loss, daring her to walk further than fear or pain had ever taken her. The journey from Skjalvind began with heavy silences. Kjarva, Bruni, and Yrsa walked single file across wind-blasted ridges, following the elusive prints of the silver fox, which would appear at dawn and dusk, always watching, never letting them draw close. The air bit through wool and fur. Twilight lasted longer each day until only a band of blue and bruised pink framed the horizon. They did not speak of their reasons for following the myth. But as the sunless days dragged on, the silence between them began to fill with the weight of their individual losses. A father made mute by heartbreak, friends long dead or exiled, children whispered about in hushes. The world outside Skjalvind was raw and wild. The trees grew twisted by sea winds. Wild rivers tore their courses afresh every spring, and stones rose in curious circles at every clearing, their runes weathered, marking prayers and bargains no living tongue remembered. Crows watched from ash branches, their calls harsh, but the fox's tracks glowed in pale light. One afternoon brought them to a ravine where the snow gave way to bare stone, and the air felt thick as honey. Yrsa halted, staring down at frost-rimed bones scattered in the gorge. She knelt and ran a finger along a broken rib, then closed her eyes. "Here is where my sister fell," she whispered. Kjarva stood beside her. "Did you see her go?" she asked. Yrsa shook her head. "No, I only heard the story and dreamed she was calling to me every winter since. This is the first time I feel nearly at peace." Bruni, whose hands stayed chapped even within thick gloves, stooped over the remains. "All things break in winter," he muttered. "Even iron, even family." He handed Yrsa his last cake of honey bread, and together they arranged the bones into a spiral, whispering names with each piece set. Night settled hard, and a pale green aurora twisted above, cold and bright. None spoke as the fox appeared across the ravine, outlined in light, urging them on. They pressed forward, the path narrowing to a channel of ice between jagged rocks. There Bruni's loss found its edge. The smith turned and gazed back toward the lights of Skjalvind and his old forge. Memories flickered in the aurora. His father's face red with anger, apprentices who spat when he passed, a son's cradle empty. He spoke softly. "I pound iron so I do not break. Yet still, something inside me cracks." Kjarva put a hand on his arm, and for a moment, they drew warmth from each other. Yrsa laid a pine cone at the ice's edge as an offering to whatever spirits would carry pain away. Their passage was halted by a wall of stone, tall as a watchtower, spiked with icicles. The fox shimmered beneath a rune carved in the rock, an unfamiliar sigil, twisted with thorns and a star. As they approached, the sky seemed to darken further, and a voice boomed from the stone itself. "What do you carry, travelers?" The sound vibrated in their bones. Kjarva stepped forward, her heart pounding. "We carry what is lost, and the hope of a gift from the goddess Hilja," she called. The stone grumbled, and out of it stepped a being, a guardian white, formed of frost and granite, antlers scraping clouds, its eyes deep pools of shadow. Its voice now softer, it asked, "What are your true secrets?" Only the honest may pass and seek the wellspring of tears. Yrsa pressed trembling lips together. I wished my sister lost in the snow. Her laughter drove me to jealousy. Now each year I pray for her to find rest. Bruni clenched his fists. I curse my own blood for shunning me. I would do so again rather than let them see my weakness. Kjarva shut her eyes. The images came. Her mother's dying song, Island's vanished form, the guilt for not protecting, not cherishing, not believing hard enough. I resented my mother for her faith and blamed her death on the god's silence. I do not know if I still believe in anything. The White's eyes shimmered as if lit from behind. You have spoken the truth. Sorrow unvoiced devours the heart, but spoken, it becomes air and light. Pass, and remember, the next trial is not for the tongue, but for the heart. The wall split, pouring out icy mist. They stepped into a chasm lined with blue stones and drifting ghost lights. In its center, a river ran black and swift, edged by thorny willows that whispered in a language none of them knew. On the far bank shivered a bridge made of nothing but wind, held up by runes that flickered between dreams. Kjarva hesitated. The far side looked impossibly distant, the current below hungry. The bridge holds for those who have let go, said the fox, voice clear for the first time. If your burdens are heavier than your hope, you will fall. Tell what you carry now. Yrsa breathed in, voice shaking. I carry my sister's memory and the pain I offered her. But I lay down envy and keep only her laughter. Bruni said, I carry loss and rage, but I leave behind what was done. I cross as only myself, not as my father's son or my clan's shame. Kjarva pressed both hands to her heart. I carry the ache of every goodbye, the names, the emptiness, and the wish for something more. I will not cross hoping to be the person I was, but the person sorrow might make me. The wind this time rose beneath their feet, lifting them gently, trembling at first, across the black river. As they moved, each felt weight lifting. On the far bank, the fox waited, tail curled neatly, as though it had known the outcome all along. Beyond, the land bloomed with frost lilies and ancient pines. In the sheltered glen, a spring sang in clear, bell-like notes. Its surface reflected not their faces, nor their scars, but veined roots of a tree deep beneath the earth, treasured, protected, yet ever longing for sunlight. You have come to the halfway point, intoned the fox. Wash your hands. Speak the names one last time, then listen for the goddess. They obeyed. Skin tingled in the frigid water, the cold a shock to the marrow. Kjarva felt her mother's love, Bruni his lost child's hope, Yrsa the kindness she denied herself. When the last name faded, the spring shimmered, light pulsing out to fill the grove. For a heartbeat, the three saw Hilja herself, a tall woman wreathed in winter roses, tears falling like crystal, her gaze as soft as the first snow. Her voice, neither wind nor thunder, filled them. You have named what was lost and walked in truth. Now you must seek what endures. Let grief guide, but not rule you. Light will return in the song you have never dared to sing. They lingered long, soaking in the hush, before sleep took them. Kjarva woke before dawn, certain at last that the journey wasn't only for her lost family, but for every life, every voice, every story Skjalvind would ever hold. The fox disappeared as day broke, its work done. The path ahead was uncertain, but the travelers set off, grief lightened, hearts changed, toward the hills where dawn first breaks, hope threading the spaces where words begin and end. The hills ahead shimmered with ice and possibility, their slopes dusted in pale blue light from the returning sun. On the horizon, where bare trees clawed at the wind, Kjarva, Bruni, and Yrsa saw the outline of a solitary cairn, a mound of stones older than any story spoken in Skjalvind. They reached the cairn by midday, the cold biting at their fingers, the land silent as if holding its breath. Kjarva paused at an ancient rune carved into the largest stone. Its spiral pattern matched the one on her mother's cloak. She placed her palm against the rune, and the stone pulsed faintly, as if acknowledging her sorrow. Beside her, Yrsa traced patterns with a feather found in the frost, while Bruni measured the cairn's shape, wondering aloud what kind of hands first built it. As evening slid across the land, the three built a fire, its smoke curling into the sky like a new prayer. They sat close, sharing thin soup and dried berries, And for the first time since leaving the grove, Kjarva spoke of Island. Island was never afraid, she whispered, her voice cracked. He used to say winter was nothing but another story waiting for heroes. Bruni nodded. I once thought my son would forge legends. Instead, sometimes it's the quiet moments that endure. Yrsa listened, drawing runes in the earth. Her thoughts curled around the idea that memory, like frost, can make familiar shapes new. Their fire illuminated the story-etched stones and summoned echoes from beyond. Under the cairn's shadow, they felt the presence of those who'd come before, a chorus of grief and hope interwoven in silence. That night, Kjarva dreamed she was standing on the edge of an endless ice field, her family's voices carried on the wind, not in despair, but in a song whose melody promised release. When dawn broke, the sky bloomed with ribbons of light. The fox did not return, but instead a great raven landed upon the cairn, its feathers slicked with mist and its eyes gleaming. It cawed 3 times, then hopped along the stones, as if inviting them to follow. Yrsa understood. The raven is the messenger of dusk and change. We are close to what Hilja promised. They journeyed onward through thistle and standing pools, where every footstep raised the scent of old leaves and hidden rot. The world felt heavier with history, as though the air itself carried the weight of unfinished sorrow. Occasionally, the sound of chimes, unseen, unclaimed, trembled through the marshes, and each traveler felt a shiver in their spine, a longing for home and a fear they could no longer name. By the afternoon, a wall of white fog enveloped the party, dividing the land into mystery and memory. Bruni led, his instincts guiding them toward firmer ground. At dusk, they arrived at the threshold of a vast, frozen lake, its mirror surface unbroken by wind. At its center, a single tree grew, the glass birch, so named for its shimmering bark and the way its branches encircled the sky like arms reaching for a blessing. To cross the lake, the companions needed to trust the stories they'd shared and the forgiveness they'd begun to offer themselves. Kjarva recalled the fox's words, "Let grief guide, but not rule." With slow, measured steps, they walked upon the ice, every breath labored, every heartbeat marking another surrender to the journey's price. Beneath the glass birch, they found 3 stones, each inscribed with a rune of transformation. The wind carried Hilja's lament, a song of winter, loss, and the promise of renewal. Here, the trial was not for strength or cleverness, but for the willingness to remain, to witness sorrow until it became something more than pain. Kjarva placed her mother's cloak at the base of the tree, whispering, "Your songs are seeds, mother. I plant them here where the world can remember." Bruni struck his last piece of iron against the roots, forging a medallion to hang from the lowest branch. "Let this mark my endurance and all I've learned in breaking." Yrsa poured out the pine cone, feathers, and all the small talismans she'd gathered as tokens of hope reclaimed from envy. As night spread, the tree shimmered, its bark reflecting visions, a clan reborn, a child's laughter, a smith's proud hands, a sister forgiven. All sorrow, all joy mingled together. The raven lifted into the sky, cawing again. In its wake, the aurora brightened, and the ice below revealed thousands of glimmers, memories frozen, each waiting to be retrieved and transformed. They slept beside the glass birch, comforted by a warmth no fire could create. Dreams came gentle and persistent, Island running with foxes, Bruni's son playing beneath tall trees, Yrsa and her sister watching birds dance through clouds. And Hilja's voice whispered to them as dawn broke, "Loss carves deep, but what you fill the hollow with is yours to choose." At sunrise, a pale path grew from the tree's shadow, stretching north along the shore. The companions stood, lighter in spirit, the weight of their sorrows tempered by new resolve. They followed the path, ready to meet whatever gods or trials remained, knowing now that their greatest gift was not survival, but the stories woven from every loss. Beyond the glass birch, beyond ravens and foxes, lay the edge of myth itself, where goddess and mortal meet, and grief, at last, becomes a song the whole world can sing. The path north wound through stunted pines and moonlit meadows, a white ribbon curling through landscapes both haunted and beautiful. For several days, Kjarva, Bruni, and Yrsa traveled in relative silence, the glass birches blessing warming each step even as the snow piled higher and the night stretched on. Cold light glowed on runestones set deep in the snowdrifts. Sometimes, flurries would clear, revealing remnants of old camps, abandoned sleds, tattered cloaks, stones arranged in secret patterns. Yrsa, ever attuned to the wisdom of things forgotten or lost, paused often to touch the marks and whisper a blessing for travelers vanished into ice. On the sixth night, as the aurora undulated overhead, a distant howl reverberated through the valley. No wolf, but the sorrow song of windhounds, spirits whose passage Kjarva recalled from her father's tales, warned of coming trials. And indeed, by morning, the way was blocked by a great stone arch, locked in place by 3 massive chains, each with a rune marking grief, memory, and promise. Bruni eyed the work. Such chain must be shattered from inside, not by force. As he traced the links with cold-blued hands, the stones began to tremble, and a new voice swelled from beneath. A woman's lament, words rolling from the roots in a tongue older than the land. From the center of the arch, 3 visions rose. Yrsa, Kjarva's mother, cradling a child, Bruni's son, forging something from raw metal, Yrsa's sister, singing to birds atop bright stone. These specters did not demand tribute, but truth. What one memory do you carry that you fear will never change? The voice asked. Yrsa went first. It is the moment I turn my back on my sister's joy, choosing envy over love. I fear I will always see her face as a reproach, not a blessing. Bruni's answer was graver. My son's death, the quiet, cruel winter. I fear my pride kept me from comfort when he needed it, and that memory will always be a border between us, never a bridge. Kjarva, trembling, confessed, the day I hid my grief from my mother. I wished to be brave, but I fear that in silence, I dishonored her love. As the memories were spoken, the chains glowed, and the runes etched on each link burned with blue flame. The arch shuddered and lifted, opening the way. A hush settled, and in the winter grass beyond, the companions found 3 talismans, a feather for forgiveness, a coin for healing, and a shard of glass for hope. Kjarva lifted the feather. When she held it, warmth bloomed inside her, a sense that each wound could someday feel less sharp. Bruni accepted the coin, marking it with his smith's sigil, a silent promise to invest healing in every new bond made or old bond reforged. Yrsa tucked the shard of glass into her pouch, where it caught every star, a fragment of future hope. Beyond the arch, strange lights flickered. The party crossed a series of frozen streams, each a whispering testament, songs sung, tears shed, laughter never quite lost. At every bank, echoes of Skjalvind called for remembrance. In the heart of a wide clearing, the auroras fell so close that their colors painted the snow in impossible hues. Here, the goddess Hilja finally appeared, not in dream, but in flesh, tall, fierce, with a crown of ice and a mantle of wind. Her tears fell, creating pools that steamed with memory. She spoke in voices both distant and familiar. You have walked the old ways, named your grief, offered truth at each trial. Now, to finish the journey, you must give away what you most wish to keep. Not a person, not a memory, but a part of yourselves shaped by loss. The companions faltered. What had they left that could mean so much? Bruni pressed his coin into the pool. My pride, the strength that let me survive, but kept me separate. I surrender it so my future work can be built on love, not isolation. Yrsa released the glass shard. The wound I wear as proof of envy. The desire to be first, to be remembered. I give this so my sister's song can take root in me instead. Kjarva placed her feather on the water. My silence, a shield I believe kept me safe, but it kept me alone. I let it go, so the voices I love can shape me, not fear. Hilja accepted their gifts. Her tears grew thicker, the air grew heavy and round, humming with sorrow and promise. You have given all. Now take what the world offers in return. Memory shaped into myth, grief tempered into strength, forgiveness grown as fruit on the tree you planted. A rush of wind carried the 3 from the clearing. When they opened their eyes, they were miles from Hilja's pool, standing on familiar ground. The ridge overlooking Skjalvind, where the ancient stone circle waited. It was dawn, and for the first time, golden light filled the world. The fox sat between the stones, tail curled, eyes bright. Kjarva, Bruni, and Yrsa were home, changed in ways that would echo beyond their lifetimes. Sorrow was not forgotten, but woven into every new joy, memory, now a gift, not a curse. They would plant new tales, teach new songs, rebuild the hall with laughter as strong as the old stones. Skjalvind would flourish, not by escaping loss, but by embracing it as the soil from which hope grows. And in every windfall, every cold night, the goddess Hilja's blessing would whisper, "Let grief be named, let memory take root, let love be reborn." The sun's hesitant return was met with celebration and awe in Skjalvind. As Kjarva, Bruni, and Yrsa descended the ridge into the valley, villagers emerged blinking from dwellings layered with smoke and fatigue. Few recognized the three at first, an odd party caked in frost and gleaming with an inward strength, followed by the always watchful fox. Children cheered as the travelers crossed the stone circle, their scars no longer evidence of defeat, but of unimaginable journey. Elders gathered, asking after lost traditions, and in the evening, torches ringed the field where grief had once forbidden laughter. Kjarva collapsed into her father's arms while Bruni and Yrsa were swept into the tide of reunion and questions. Yet the joy was bittersweet, shadows loitered behind candles, and for every tale of survival there were empty chairs and names unspoken. Kjarva felt old wounds crack as she entered her mother's kitchen, breathing in the ghost of herbs and oil. But a new resolve warmed her bones. Her mother's silence, once an unbearable absence, now felt like a promise. Memory is not a shroud, but the loom where hope is spun. Life in Skjalvind began to change. Guided by Kjarva's insistence, the clan gathered nightly to share not only food, but memories, a practice at first awkward, then freeing. Bruni was welcomed back into the smithy, and in the singing light, he crafted fine tools and a series of rings, each etched with a rune from their journey. For every pain, a purpose, he always said when passing one along. Yrsa, restless, became the village's keeper of stories and riddles. She taught children to read scars as runes of survival, and each week led them to the cairn where she and her sister once quarreled. There, she hummed old songs, her voice woven with peace, envy shed like winter skin. With the start of thaw, something miraculous sprouted beneath the stone circle. 3 stalks, one golden, one silver, one blue, growing from the snow crust and breaking it open with stubborn promise. Kjarva awoke one dawn to find the fox watching the plants, tail flicking in anticipation. That day she summoned the village. We were not chosen because we lacked sorrow, but because we dared to name and carry it. Now, let Skjalvind forever mark its seasons by story, and let these plants become the first of our living memories. She and her companions dug around the sprouts, found their roots thick with frost, but warm where they pressed the earth. They braided the leaves with colored thread, Bruni's first new iron ring, Yrsa's bright feather, Kjarva's sun-etched glass. Each villager placed their own token, a bead, a braid, even a word spoken with trembling lips. They called it the Grove of Witness. From that point, memories were no longer forbidden. The rituals spread. Each year, elders led the children to plant a new slip. Each winter, those who had lost gathered around the thickening grove, naming what hurt them most, then naming something, anything, they hoped to see flourish. One evening, as laughter and tears joined around a fire, the fox approached Kjarva. Its eyes were filled with sky, and for the first time, she saw who waited behind them. Not just the gods, but her own potential, braided with every soul brave enough to return from sorrow. That spring, the glass birch in the north blossomed for the first time in memory, its branches heavy with frost-covered flowers, silent gifts sent, perhaps, by Hilja herself. And in Skjalvind, hope became not a story for another day, but a seed planted in every loss, watered by every telling. But the world outside remained turbulent. Rumors filtered in of distant clans struggling through unimaginable hardship, drought, raiders, storms that swept entire valleys to the sea. The 3 who had changed their own village now faced a choice: remain content, or travel the ways between kin, carrying what they'd learned. The fox appeared once more beneath the midnight sun, tails sweeping a line of bright grass in the dark. Kjarva, Bruni, and Yrsa stood together, understanding what must come. "We saved ourselves and each other," Bruni said, voice forging every word into a bond. "Now let's see how far this healing can go." They packed their belongings, tokens from the grove, a bell made from Bruni's smith, and a shard from the original glass birch. Then gathered the blessing of Skjalvand one last time, promising to spread the whisper that every wound could sing. As they set forth, the entire valley sang with them. The saga that began in loss now set out to heal the world, echoing across the north, a song carried by wind, by fox, and by every voice that dared to mourn and dream and believe once more. The journey beyond Skjalvand began under a sky both radiant and uncertain. Kjarva, Bruni, Yrsa, and the silent fox crossed high passes, rivers edged with amber light, and forests singing with distant memory. Each step forward felt both an act of faith and a test. The world was wider and more wounded than any of them had imagined from stories told beside comfortable fires. They came first to the settlement of Vindaland, where grief had turned sharp and silent. Black flags whipped along the streets, and the faces of its folk bore lines carved deeper than years should allow. Not a song was sung, not a tale shared. Loss sat in every threshold like a frozen shadow. Kjarva, her heart steadying, asked to see the elders. They brought forth a woman called Grella, who wore a necklace of stones, each marked for a soul who had not returned from the long winter. "We have nothing left to hope for," she said. "Every blessing has become a memory, and every prayer is a hollow sound." Yrsa knelt and placed the glass shard on the hearth. "We have learned to speak sorrow aloud. Shall we sit and name each loss, all together?" Bruni kindled a fire with his own hands, humming a melody that caught at first in his throat and then grew warm, then open. Kjarva sang softly, calling upon remembered names, her mothers, islands, even strangers lost to skaldic matins. The villagers, uncertain, began to whisper their own. A daughter swept to sea, a brother vanished in the snow, a dream of spring never come. Beyond midnight, Grella's black necklace felt lighter. "Your pain is ours," she said. "Let us plant some hope here." They pressed a slip from the grove of witness into the town center, yoking memory with living root. Vindaland changed with the thaw. Where silence once ruled, a new circle grew. Villagers painted stones with the names of both their sorrows and their wishes, placing them so the wind would carry the stories between doors. As Kjarva's group moved on, the villagers gathered at dawn, speaking their grief to the sky, and singing songs they thought had died forever. Word of their coming spread. Clan after clan invited Kjarva, Bruni, Yrsa, and the fox into smokehouses and halls, onto wind-lashed peninsulas and bright meadows. Sometimes they were met with suspicion. Strangers bearing a message that pain could become seed seemed either mad or arrogant. But wherever they stayed, stories unfolded, stones were gathered, and new slips rooted. Grove traditions spun outward, like scent from a crushed herb. In time, even the half-seen appeared. On the edge of a dark wood, trickster spirits in animal skins circled the group, seeking the source of their stubborn hope. Kjarva welcomed them, singing the old song of transformation. The half-seen watched, then danced, leaving behind woven bracelets and petals that never wilted, as if blessing the growing myth. Bruni found himself forging not swords or nails, but bells, spoons, amulets, small things meant for hands that trembled with memory, tools for those who would dare to plant or sing again. Yrsa was invited to teach children everywhere to read the stones, the scars, the feathered dreams of things half remembered. Each night, she sent riddles echoing into the trees, teaching others how to sit with hard questions, how to find laughter curled inside them. As the seasons shifted, famine, quarrel, and the threats of southern raiders crept close. Still, the hope of Kjarva's company spread faster than danger. Wherever a grove was born, people gathered to name the lost and lift their names into something new. Sometimes only in whispers, sometimes in full voice, always with tears, never again with silence. Their tale itself began to change the land. In the farthest north, where old gods were said to slumber, elders dreamed of the fox and the three from Skjalvand, and their clans woke seeking stones to start anew. Eventually, though, homesickness grew sharp in the travelers' hearts, especially as omens. Wild weather, flocks turning east, dreams of mothers and siblings pressed closer. The fox, grown old but still bright, looked to the south one twilight, as if summoning fate. "We must return," Bruni said. "We promised not just to spread hope, but to see if it survived where we began." A final night was spent with the last clan on the wildest coast. There, beneath stars and the shy aurora, Kjarva promised their story would always welcome new voices, new pain, new hope. The last slip was planted in icy ground, tended by hands both young and bent with age. The fox led them home, and with each step south, they wondered, did Skjalvand remember them? Had the roots of renewal truly run deep enough to bear another winter? What would they find, returning from the world's edge, with everything given and very little left to fear? As dawn bled over the horizon, the first stones of Skjalvand rose from the valley mist, the grove of witness standing tall in defiance of every season. Home was both familiar and new. Skjalvand's valley glimmered like the inside of a memory, smoke rising from rebuilt halls, children's laughter threading between half-healed stones, the grove of witness spreading its roots where sorrow once reigned. The harsh winter that had emptied the village seemed a distant, dreaming memory. Kjarva, Bruni, and Yrsa paused at the ridge, the fox at their heels, and gazed down with hearts thickened by loss and crowned with tentative pride. As they entered through the stone circle, they noticed the differences their absence had made. Songs mingled with prayers in the market. Elders wove new stories into old, and strangers from distant clans hugged the hearth as kin. The returns brought waves of joy. Kjarva's father wept openly by the grove. Bruni was met by apprentices eager to learn kindness as well as craft, and Yrsa's circle of storytellers overflowed. But not all was joy. Some whispered of woods still haunted by hunger and names that never again answered the roll call at dawn. Kjarva found her mother's cloak exactly where she'd left it and let tears fall onto the stitches as she began to sing. The fox wandered the grove, greeting every new leaf and tender shoot. Children chased its tail, while elders sometimes glimpsed behind its eyes the curve of the goddess's smile. That night, under torches and northern stars, Skjalvand gathered for the largest circle ever held. They spoke of journey and return. Kjarva shared the lesson of loss named and sorrow sung aloud. Bruni of pride surrendered, and how even a smith's hands could build a gentler world. Yrsa told how envy could become beauty, how every scar could teach a song. People from all walks of life brought stones and tokens, weaving them into the growing grove. A boy with haunted eyes asked if the world would ever lose all pain. Kjarva knelt before him, voice patient. Never. But every pain can become a hope, if we welcome it, share it, and let it grow roots alongside the things we love. In the weeks that followed, Skjalvand merged tradition and change. At each solstice, names of the lost were painted on glass and hung in the trees, shining with dawn. During storms, families gathered to speak aloud their buried griefs, and the grove's strength sheltered even the quietest sorrow. The fox grew slower, finally sleeping beneath the tallest tree, content as a legend and as real as every lantern in the night. Spring brought messengers from every scattered settlement, eager to learn or simply to witness. Kjarva led children deep into woods singing new songs made from old grief. Bruni forged vessels not of iron, but of clay and laughter. Yrsa's riddles blossomed into rituals, and every question asked in the grove drew forth 100 hands to help answer. Even when darkness or famine threatened, the people remembered. Grief shared becomes seed. Memory spoken becomes a promise. Hope planted grows in even the coldest ground. As years passed, Skjalvand became known as the Hearth of Memory, a place where all who had lost might plant a token, sing their sorrow, and find, if not what they'd lost, then something to shape the loss into tenderness. Kjarva herself grew old, leading the planting and the song circles, her voice the thread that wove the decades together. When her last winter came, she sat beneath the tallest tree, the fox's spirit curled at her side, and watched her grandchildren hang glass names in the dawn. Her final words echoed in the hush. Let the world take what it must, and let us give back what we can. Let every wound teach. We are not meant to escape grief, but to share it, and so become whole. After her passing, Bruni and Yrsa took up the song, and later, others after them, a chain unbroken, carried by wind, by fox, by every voice that dared to mourn honestly and build again. The goddess Hilja appeared no more, but in each evening breeze and every child's laughter, something godlike persisted, a myth always begun anew. The saga ended as all true stories do, not with closure, but with roots spread wide, sorrow named and sung, and hope blooming every year beneath skies that forever remember and forgive.